And away we go. Welcome back, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. David from Coffee Talk at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube. If you, if you are listening and not watching, yes, I'm surrounded by kittens. Here's one. If you can see, because yes, I have more. I have 4 more added to the shelter, 3 kittens and 1 adult. Just recently. So thanks for joining us today. Again, Coffee Talk at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube and fistfulofradio.com, which is a podcasting service out of Atlanta, where you can find me Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon, unless something changed and I had no idea, as we get ready to jump into the news here shortly. And you can see that I am surrounded here by felines. Hello, buddy. Keeping me company. All strays that we take care of. I woke up to the one sitting in my lap. I think it's the one that's sitting in my lap, licking my eyebrow last night. And I'm surprised I still have it. Anyways, we'll take a look at some of the people who are joining us today. Helter is here. And of course, I'll try to read as many comments as I can so that I can, stay off the keyboard, as many comments as I can so that people who are listening and not able to see can keep up. I see Ali here, and they said that the guy who does yard work for them sprayed something on their garden that they didn't ask for. And they've worked very hard on having an organic garden, and they don't know what that is. It's some kind of weed killer, I bet. And that's unfortunate. I see Dragon is here. Armored Ghost says, Fistful of Radio, House Full of Cats. Yeah, it sure seems that way, doesn't it? There is John. Hello, fellow cat fans. Urban is here. Rainy day in Canada's West Coast, they say. Chevaux Noir. I finally caught the live. I'm trying to get as much advice as I can as a 24-year-old. Yeah, I don't blame you. Says they've been watching for 4 years. Goodness. And you see they're congregating behind me here. If you guys are able to see, because again, as I said, some people are listening and not watching. Yeah, try to take all the take in as much as you can, and always be leery of the advice, because some people do give bad advice, or advice that is good may not be good for you. And as far as Ali and your gardening, that's unfortunate, because I've shown that on shorts on the Prepper channel too, entire areas that have been sprayed by the county to combat to either combat mosquitoes or to kill weeds, kill basically everything on the side of the road. Everything is dead for like 10 feet in. Easy. Scratching me up. As we prepare, anyways, to jump into the news here today. Bams says Roundup only stays 40 years in the soil and causes especially brain cancer. Only 40 years, huh? That's great. And Preparedness Veteran is here. Thanks for joining us today as we get ready to dive in. Now, I'll try to stay focused. It's kind of distracting when they're climbing on you, although those two have decided they're going to sit down for a while there and keep me company in the background. And speaking of things that stay for a long period of time, that ties in with our first article that we're going to take a look at. Urban says, my favorite current story right now is the lawsuit filed by Michael Orr against the Tui family. I've seen that. I know what you're talking about from that book. He's complaining that he didn't get enough money and they were conservators. They were conservators because he was a nitwit and he was a kid. And if you're young and you're in the you're going into the NFL and all that other stuff, you get that conservatorship, and it protects you from the type of people of the environment that you come from coming around and bumming money off of you. Look what happened to MC Hammer. They bankrupt him, family and friends. But now he wants to turn around decades later after he's retired and try to sue the family because he didn't get his fair share. I think he's been very well cared for. That's a sad story. It sucks to see. It makes me think it has echoes of Colin Kaepernick, just not appreciating the situation. Hey, you were a kid who was basically adopted. I know he was too old to be adopted at the time because I think he was already pretty on in age, but they took him on. He was already in like the last year of high school or something, but they took you in and they took you on, and this is how you appreciate it. Garth says lesson one of the day: keep the garden as far from the road as humanly possible. Yeah, no kidding. And Armored Ghost says, is Alex Jones still fighting that crazy lawsuit where he owes Randos absurd amounts of money? I think he is, as much as he can afford to do so. Again, speaking of which, getting into the first article of interest here, and this comes from Wealthy Living. And there's your favorite president, the most popular president in U.S. history. Just ask anyone in Washington. And again, this comes from Wealthy Living. And it says, are vaccine and mask mandates returning? Biden seems to think so. Yeah, they're trying to push this agenda again. And I hope enough people have learned their lesson from the last go around, where they basically shut the country down for almost 2 years and you couldn't do anything. They wanted to force you. A lot of people lost their jobs. They wanted to force you to get a shot. They wanted to force you to wear masks. To go anywhere, you had to have a mask on. They closed up businesses. Best Buy was vetting people at the door. They had a line outside and evaluating people, and it was ridiculous. I don't know if you, I don't really shop at Best Buy, but I remember seeing this, and I think I filmed it at the time because it was crazy. It was crazy the way they were doing it. This massive long line of people that had appointments. You had to call in and make an appointment to go into the Best Buy. It was ridiculous. Armored says, oh, you knocked something down, did you? That's great. Armored says Biden's so popular, even FDR voted for him twice. Yeah, I know. That's who they were voting for in Gangs of New York when they were picking up the people off the docks and shaving them and sending them in to vote again. Was casting early votes for Biden. But yeah, they would love to start this all over again because it gave them a lot of new taxes. It gave them a lot of control. They got to spend unnecessary money. They love that kind of stuff. Government loves that. Says, are vaccine and mask mandates returning? Biden seems to think so. President Joe Biden asked Congress for more money to develop a new C virus vaccine, and he may require everyone to get it. Here's the full story. When C virus cases started rising again in the U.S., President Joe Biden told reporters that he had signed off on a proposal for Congress to, quote, request additional funding for a new vaccine. Yeah, that's what we need, to spend more damn money. Biden also said, quote, tentatively, it is recommended that it will likely be recommended. He said that twice in the same sentence. Tentatively, I'm surprised he got tentatively out without fumbling the word. It is recommended that it will likely be recommended. Everybody will get it no matter whether they've gotten it before or not. Recently, Biden requested $40 million from Congress. The request included money for Ukraine, U.S. federal disaster funds, and funds for enforcement along the U.S.-Mexico border to slow the flow of fentanyl. Is this the same story? A request for $9.25 billion to fight C virus was denied by Congress in 2022. $9.25 billion to fight a virus. They just want to burn money. The new C virus vaccines will contain one version of the Omicron strain double B 1.5. Previous vaccines included a mix of the original corona C virus strain with last year's most common Omicron variants. Basically spinning their wheels. This is being, if they're going to try to force something like that, it's being done on purpose because they're not making the money they were. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that Pfizer is crying that they're losing a fortune in their stocks because guess what? People aren't getting the boosters anymore. They got tired of it. It's either making them sick or they realize it ain't working. Broken Gardening is here. And Arakel is here. Thanks for joining us today. Preparedness says still seeing people wearing masks in shop now. So am I. I'm seeing people wearing masks in shops. I'm seeing employees that still have masks on, people still using gloves. Massive obsession with hand sanitizer, which is not good for you. It's not good for you to constantly be using hand sanitizer. I believe it says that on the bottle, doesn't it? Not to use it excessively. Anything in excess isn't good for you. John says, I've been wearing a mask at times because of smoke in the air. That's different. Dragon says, this is Biden's last ditch gambit 14 months before the election. Time to herd the sheep. Yeah, no kidding. And Broken Gardening says, just keep racking up the debt. It's not their money. They don't care. It's real easy to spend someone else's money. Urban says the latest virus is a variant of Omicron, and it's called BA 2.86. Apparently, vaccinated people are more susceptible. What a coincidence. And then they'll need another shot for that. They'll need another shot for that, won't they, guys? That's what. Hello, Uncle. Uncle is here. Hey, buddy. How you doing? Looking for attention. I'm surrounded. But anyways. And let me see. Who else is here? Freedom for All is here. Says, what's up? Definitely seeing more masks. A lot will wear them for the rest of their lives. Yeah, or wearing two masks. You got to put on two masks. It works better than one. That's what we're told. Wear it in the pool. I've seen that. I've seen pictures of people on the beach or in the pool with a mask on. It's like you want to waterboard yourself. Go ahead and swim with a mask on. It's brilliant. Noir says, I got to get out of the country. No kidding. If there was anywhere to go, I mean, I hate to say it, but as bad as and as weird as things are in the United States, most of the world is much worse. Armored says, it's so odd they try to reboot the common cold scare. How did they figure there's any chance of that taking off? Well, they sure did convince enough people the first time around. Armored says, didn't multiple states already ban forced jabbing? I believe so, but you know how that works. And Garsh says, fine example in practice of why it was stupid to abolish the debt limit for 2 years. And Helter says, Biden is spewing nonsense. It's just another fear-mongering tactic to hem people in. And Noir says, I meant out of the city into the country. I see what you mean. I was kind of surprised. A lot of like old school country folk were as bought in as anyone else. That really surprised me, seeing especially older folks and people from like farming and rural communities really bought in with all of this. And I'm like, why are you believing this? You're people that traditionally don't trust the government doing everything they tell you to do. It doesn't make sense. John says, Luciferian NWO. And Arakel says, concerns as something serious is released. Remember the lab in Fresno. And Urban said, the first rule of the Common Cold Club, if you do not talk about the Common Cold Club, yeah, you don't talk about it. You get in trouble. You can get in a lot of trouble for talking about that kind of stuff. But since we're on the subject of Biden, and I thought this was an interesting story. An interesting story. Bam says, pretty sure Nuremberg Code says no, not forced medical experiments. Yeah, but they sure did. They sure did force experimentation on people because that stuff wasn't tested. Any other time they got a vaccination, they'd spend years on it. This time they roll it out in a few months. And Monkey says, if I had to guess, it's probably due to requirements for funding from the government if they don't get the jab or something like that. And Armin says, imagine the CDC ordering the country to lock down again. Yeah. Hey, and people will go along with it. People will suck it up. But this is an article from the American Insider, and it says Joe Biden lies again. Oh, come on. Poor old Uncle Joe. He doesn't lie, does he? Ask him. He'll tell you he never lied a day in his life. It says it doesn't end well for him. President Joe Biden, resident in thief, Joe Biden posted a video that falsely claims Republican presidential candidates plan to ban abortion and cut Social Security. They're always accusing them of cutting Social Security. They wouldn't need to feel like either party wouldn't need to feel like they need to cut Social Security if they weren't always borrowing against it, which should not be allowed anyways. It says, raise your hand if you're a climate denier. Raise your hand if you're going to support Trump. Many Americans noted how the Biden administration has condemned the spreading of misinformation and disinformation. Biden even helped establish the so-called, quote, Ministry of Truth. Yeah, we know how that worked out. Hypocritically, the Biden White House openly and regularly engages in the same behavior that it condemns. How Orwellian is that? Social media erupted in negative backlash. Resign, one person responded. I don't care about people's responses, really. I don't know why it is now in all these news articles. They got to tell you some quote from some jackbutt on Twitter, or I guess now it's X, and what they said in the comment section. It's really kind of ridiculous. As of August 28th, 2023, a staggering 54% of Americans disapprove of Biden's job performance, according to 538. Biden disapproval rating has been steadily increasing since he took office in January 2021. His disapproval rating was 38%. Who are they asking? You know how I am with statistics. I don't trust any of them. And I know his approval rating is probably low. It's probably lower than 54%. And I'm willing to bet they probably didn't interview more than 1,000 people to get those statistics. It says there are a number of factors that have contributed to Biden's high disapproval rating. These include his handling of C virus mandates, the war in Ukraine, and rising inflation. I wonder if that link will go to the actual statistic, or if it'll tell you how many people they interviewed. I'm just opening this up really quickly to see if I can read an actual number, and I cannot. I'm flipping through. I clicked the link that goes to the poll, and it's not showing me how many people were polled to get 54%. Again, I don't trust it. I'm sure that, again, his numbers really are low because most people don't really like him. But I don't trust poll numbers anyways. And Freedom says old people are too indoctrinated from the government, from the government, and will believe anything they say. But of course, not all of them. Yeah. And Noir says it's crazy when you can't trust anyone at all. I'm Christian, but you can't trust the church. But when I was more agnostic, I found you can't trust scientists and government. It's like, dang. Yeah, I know. You can't trust the scientists. You can't trust the government. Scientists are too easy to buy off. Government has an agenda, and so does the church. And the church is very misleading because the church often is not very well biblically versed. These pastors, ministers, bishops, they don't know what they're talking about. And also, if they're 501c3s, then there's a limit to what they can discuss because they'll lose their tax exemption status. And Arakel says, well, they have a federal task force department for a pandemic. UN can intervene. We got sold for 30 pieces of silver, less than that. And Helter says people will still vote for Biden regardless of approval, especially since they dislike Trump more. And John says, I dislike all the political class. I don't have a team. And yeah, you shouldn't have a team. Whoa, because you can't trust them. You can't trust them. They all have an agenda. Any politician, any activist has an agenda, and you got to be really careful. You have to be really careful with them. They're more concerned about themselves, their popularity, their money, their fame, whatever it is they're after. They're more concerned about that than they are about anything else. Get off the keyboard. Come back here. No name, anybody. No name on any of these kittens. Not yet. And Freedom says a lot of doomsday planes have been up in the air lately. And then Urban says, well, at 51, it seems to me the younger people are the most freaked out by whatever fear factor is currently popular. Well, easier to manipulate. Easier to manipulate because they've been getting indoctrinated by the system and haven't learned to question it. They haven't learned to question it. They've learned to just accept it. And to believe it. And they think that anyone over the age of 30 is the enemy. We're all boomers now and we ruined the world, and now it's on them to fix it, even though they're not going to do a damn thing except complain. That's always been the case. Where are you going? Having some kitten problems here suddenly. John says team cats. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I got here is team cats. And now suddenly StreamYard doesn't want to work. Here we go. Preparedness says, isn't the WHO and its new international health regulations trying to get control of pandemic decisions? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And Noir says, question, do you think you should vote third party? I had a conversation with my dad, who's history major with a master's, and he says voting third usually lets conservatives win since the left splits. Well, the thing with voting third party, and they kind of made fun of it on The Simpsons, it's like throwing your vote away because they can't win. It's rigged against them. Ralph Nader ran on that ticket way back in the day where he said, I know I can't win because I'm running as a third party, but let my name be a none of the above on your ballot, because there is no none of the above. If there was a none of the above, that would win, but there isn't. And he actually campaigned for that. He was like, let my name be your none of the above on your ticket, because people will always vote for a party they feel obligated. They feel obligated to. They like to put themselves into camps. But yeah, it's kind of like I said, The Simpsons, where they had the aliens revealed that one of them was they had the Democratic and the Republican presidential candidate, and they turned out to both be aliens. And they were like, you have to vote for one of us. You have no choice. And the guy said, well, we could always vote independent. And they were like, yeah, go ahead. Throw your vote away. That's about what it boils down to. John says, don't vote, don't encourage them. Hey, it's tempting to not do it. A lot of people don't want to vote anymore. They don't want to vote anymore. And this system doesn't work anyways. You're rigged. Freedom says if you vote, you don't. If I guess he means don't. If you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain. You made it. If you vote, you don't have the right to complain. You made a decision and gave them approval. Come here before you break your neck. And Urban says the EU Digital C Virus Certificate Initiative was launched this summer in partnership with WHO. Translation: Global Vaccine Passport. And Bam says, I feel obligated to not vote. Well, it doesn't work. You know it's rigged. You know it doesn't work. Again, the old adage, that's how you get rid of the bad apples, but it doesn't. It doesn't get rid of them. And if someone is replaced, often they're replaced with someone just as bad or worse. It's like the old Who protest song about that process, if you remember. I pray we don't get fooled again. Here comes the new boss. He's just like the old boss. I don't remember the name of the song, but you might remember. You should look at the lyrics. You should look at the lyrics of that song by The Who. And there's Stacy, says super late, but hi. Thanks for joining us today, Stacy. Urban says, sorry, I'll begin using the bad C word properly. Yeah, I know. I can't say it. I've gotten in trouble for saying it, so I got to be careful. They'll hit me with the dreaded misinformation. You remember misinformation? She was She was Miss America a couple of years ago. And John says, I say don't pay taxes. That would work. Yeah, if that was even possible. It's not possible to not pay your taxes because they just take it from you. And if you found a way to avoid it, then they would take everything from you, or they'd put you in jail. It's extortion. This is, I thought, was interesting. This is an older story. It's from last week, actually, but I had wanted to say something about it because of the hypocrisy here. And this comes from Raw Story. That's the internet service, but you can find this story wherever. And it says high school student refuses order from school to remove American flags from his truck. And there you see his Toyota, and he's got two American flags on there. And it says a high school student in Virginia said he defied his high school after administrators told him to remove the American flags from his truck, reported by the Sacramento Bee. Christopher Hartless said he was told to take down the flags because they were a distraction, but he refused, saying he was exercising his First Amendment right, which technically it is. Quote, my family fought for America, and I feel like I should be able to represent the flag that they fought for. In a message, where is it? In a message in its parent weekly update letter, the school said it wanted to clarify, quote, some incorrect information posted on several social media websites. That's called damage control. The BCPS Code of Student Conduct prohibits attire that has language or images that are offensive, profane, vulgar, discriminatory, or racially, culturally diverse. This would include Confederate flags, swastikas, triple K references, or any other images that might reasonably be considered harmful or intimidating to others. The letter says it does not include wearing clothing with American flag logos or prints on its attire. This attire is allowed. Continuing on, regarding flags on cars, the student parking lot contract, which has been used by all three of our high schools for many years, states large flags or banners are not allowed to be flown or displayed on vehicles due to their distractive nature. The letter continues, but the rule doesn't make sense to Heartless. Quote, I don't understand how it's a distraction if they have one displaying in front of the school where everyone can see it. Well, that's not really the argument, kid, Christopher. That's not the argument. That's not the problem, because I bet you, yeah, who Spectre says won't get fooled again. The Who, yeah, I thought that was it, but I wasn't sure. I know the song though. And you can see the back of the car there, and he's got what, 3 flags on it, and that's not really that distracting. And that rule is there to give them a measure of control, to give the school a measure of control over their students, okay? Because that's really all it's about. But there is hypocrisy here, because I would have done an experiment. I would have flown either a pride flag or a Black Lives Matter flag, which can be far more intimidating than an American flag to high school students. All right. And I bet you they wouldn't have said a damn thing. I don't think they would have said a thing if it was pride flags or a Black Lives Matter flag. Noir says, I don't think it's as simple as don't vote, don't complain. The concept doesn't work in other areas of life, so why here? And Preparedness says, here, if you vote, your name, age, and address is added to a register, which is then sold to multiple agencies for profit. Yeah, they do the same thing at the DMV, too. The DMV sells everything. And Bams says, vote for evil or don't complain. Totally stupid. And Armid says, American flag on carry-on means you're put on the no-fly list. Really? And Prime says, congrats on the new kitties. Yeah, I know, 4 of them. We got the a female who's not quite an adult herself, who is fixed. She's already been fixed. And not too long after having weaned, because her teats are still protruded. So it hasn't been too long she stopped feeding kittens. I imagine these kittens. So, but so she got fixed. So you're gonna fix them and put them out in the woods? What the hell? Don't even get me going. And something's wrong with her leg. Her right front leg, she favors it a lot, and I got to see if I can get her an appointment to find out what's wrong with it. Preparedness says the guy should name the administrators who denied the flags. And Fluke Man says, why do people continue to live in a country that they hate? Ah, yes, the West has many benefits compared to the rest of the world. Yeah, it could be worse. It's a lot worse than everywhere else, and moving isn't quite that simple. It's not so simple for people to just pick up and go. And Helter says, after hearing the kid talk, I'd say he won't be missing anything if they pulled him from school. He hasn't paid attention in class. No, he hasn't paid attention in class if he's flying the American flag, I'll tell you that. And Monkey says, with how these public schools are, doesn't the public school technically become the parent of that kid and can say to not display the flag on the truck? Yes, they can order him because he does not have the same rights in the school as he would anywhere else or in any other institution, because your rights are waived and they become the parent ad litem or in loco parentis. And I've talked about that many, many times on this channel, in loco parentis, what that means and how it's abused by the system, by the public school system. Parents have almost no rights where these children are concerned. It's really incredible. And Martina says, my home burned, and since I live in a camper, can't renew driver's license. Wow. What state are you in that you need to do that? Because I know here I can just walk in and renew the license. I don't even have to take the eye test in Georgia. Urban says, meanwhile, in a Canadian public school, Kayla Lemieux and his Z-cup prosthetic breasts has been assigned to a new school. Oh, I remember. Is that teacher with the massive prosthetic breasts that he wears? I've seen that. Is that who you're talking about? He looks absolutely insane. And Martina says Iowa. They're in Iowa. And speaking of schools taking away parents' rights, since we're on the subject, this is one that popped up in the feeds today. And of course, it's California, but this is happening in a lot of places. And that's from the Business Insider is talking about this. Yeah. Monkey says Z cup, that's way too big. Yeah, and it's a prosthetic. It's something he puts on under his clothing because he thinks, I don't know what he thinks. I can't even imagine. But Business Insider says California Attorney General is suing a school district that's forcing teachers to tell parents if transmission or transmogrification and non-binary students want to change the pronouns. Yeah, and that's I say transmogrification or transmission or something like that on purpose to stay out of trouble. So here we go. California Attorney General is suing a school district forcing teachers to out transmogrification and non-binary students to their parents. The Chino Valley Unified School District, with over 26,000 students, voted last month to approve a, quote, parent notification policy that requires teachers and school staff to alert parents if their kids want to use pronouns, names, or bathrooms or join sports teams that differ from birth-assigned sex, reported by the Los Angeles Times. So they had to vote to approve. Think about this. Listen to the wording. Vote to approve to tell the parents what the kids are doing in the school because they weren't telling them anyways. And so they gave in and voted to, okay, on this issue, we'll notify the parents that Johnny is using the girls' room or whatever, okay? Or that Susan now identifies as a duck and we have to put Mrs. Duck on her paperwork and on her homework. They're going to let the parents know now because they weren't before, and then a judge is trying to block it because it violates their rights. In a press release, Bonta's office wrote that the policy puts these students, quote, in danger of imminent irreparable harm from the consequences of forced disclosure, which subject the students to, quote, disparate treatment and harassment, including mental, emotional, even physical abuse. But the school promoting that kind of stuff isn't abusive, right? Is that what we're supposed to believe? And Prime Mover says, I think you can still call Bud Light tranny fluid and still get away with it on YouTube. Thanks, Prime. Thanks for that. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that. But it seems to me like they're doing these kids more harm, especially as more and more people, young people who have gone through a transmogrification, are coming forward now and saying it was a huge mistake, that they felt pressure from the school, from doctors, and from activist groups to proceed with something that they now regret and are trying to detransition from, and finding that extremely difficult. That's not abuse at all. No, it's abuse to let their parents know somehow. Doug says these are children, they're underage, we're the guardians and parents in this deal. They have no rights, Doug. Again, in loco, L-O-C-O, loco, in the Greek, not Spanish. Spanish, loco means crazy. In Greek, it means in the place of. In loco parentis is a law that allows for public schools to manage the child as if they were the parent for emergency situations. And it's been abused for the last couple of decades by these institutions to do things like this. It's gotten to be a huge problem. Dragon says this is essentially the state telling parents how to parent. School boards are elected officials and the community dictates what they want. No, the community stands up at the parent-teacher conferences and yells at the so-called elected officials for their allowed 3 minutes, and then are removed by sheriff's deputies if they don't walk away from the podium. And they sit up there and ignore it because they made a decision, and that's too bad. And if you vote them out, you end up with someone even worse. Helter says they frame it as a child's rights to privacy, but the schools are given the right to withhold information that gives them influence over the kids that their own parents are being denied. Correct. And Mrs. Sanders says, sure seems crazy to me. Indeed, it is. Urban says, quote, felt pressure really means coerced to allow harm to be done by evil professionals. Yeah. And Martina says, I pay for a mail. Oh, they're talking about the little side conversation there. And Dilo says, didn't get notified when you went live, but I'm here now. Yeah, that's annoying that people don't get notified when I pop in here. Sorry that happens. And Martina says, same with voters registration. Yeah, voters registration. And in a lot of places, if you go to the DMV and do your driver's license, they'll automatically register you to vote anyways without even telling you. And John says, I gave them a fake address with a real P.O. box. Use your old address. But that's an example of the school again. And we're seeing more and more examples of this sort of thing going on, where the schools have complete control over these students as if they are the parent. The law allows for them to do it. And the parents are on the outside, which again is why I'm a big advocate for homeschooling if you can do it, for a private school, provided you've thoroughly checked out that private school to make sure they're doing what you need them to do, and if you can afford it. But yeah, absolutely homeschool if you can. It's not as hard as you think, and there are many resources and many groups out there that will try to help you. Noir says, what would be your advice to a young man who's always trying to do the right thing, but seems like this and other constant barrages of info and don't know what to do? All you can do is try to do the right thing and know that you're doing the right thing, regardless of what other people think, or if they try to stop you or control you. If you're sure that you're doing the right thing and people are trying to stop you or manipulate you otherwise, you don't need them in your life. They're not truly your friends or family if they're trying to control you. And if for some reason it's not the right thing, then it should be something that can be demonstrated to you to explain why it isn't, and then you can make a logical discernment from there. Ali says, asked my neighbor if he needed help unloading wood and he walked away. Feels bad. I'm not that spooky, am I? Did he walk away without saying anything? And Doug says, this is becoming a Hitler state of community all over the United States. Well, they wanted socialism, and now look. Who's that? Uncle, what are you doing? Come here. Once again, Uncle, everybody. He was being weird, but he will come immediately if you say his name. He's really good about that. And Bingo said, where did all these wicked out teachers come from? I guess years and years of brainwashing at liberal colleges burned them too. Not only that, but I mean, they really don't have too much of a choice. You're either really bought into it, or you get into the teaching profession and realize that you're in a box and you toe the line or you leave. You'll be ostracized. And a lot of people, a lot of teachers, they have this impression that, like, okay, yeah, I just went through 6 years of college and internship and everything else to get this job. Do I really want to start over? And it's just not that simple. It's just not that simple. And Derp says, hello, everyone. You got that lap kitty chilling again. Yeah, he's still sitting on me. And I got the other two siblings are right there. So 1, 2, 3. And I don't know where Mama is, probably hiding. And I don't blame her. Woke up to him licking my eyebrow last night, like aggressively. Like, I'm surprised I still have the damn thing. Prime says, what do you think of Vivek Ramaswamy? He says way too many things right. I don't trust it. And he talks fast. He does. At least he doesn't need a teleprompter. He does talk very, very fast. And when one thing that's important to point out about when they had the Republican, what do they call it? The rally where they were being interviewed, and they posed the question, would you exonerate Trump? Raise your hand. Okay. And keeping in mind that they all signed a disclosure before going up on the podium, that was one of the requirements for being on the podium, is that you agreed that you would say that. He was the first one to raise his hand. Everyone else who raised their hand watched to see if anyone was going to raise their hand before they did it. And you'll notice that there was a couple of people that were way delayed in doing it, including Mike Pence and Christie, which I don't even know why he's up there. Yeah, I don't know about that guy. There's a lot of things that he says that sound right, and there's a couple of things that don't. And I'll have to look at that a little bit more closely. Broken says, I'm not trying to be problematic, but the original Constitution and Bill of Rights at the time was for the land business owners at the time. It wasn't aimed at certain people, genders, or children. And parents had the rights over their children. Yeah, they did. They don't anymore. Fluke Man says, school hands out children's books that should be for adults, but when the parent reads them out loud at school committee, they immediately stop them and say it's inappropriate. I remember the pastor who did that. Reading the book, and they told him he needed to stop because they're going to offend people. And he was like, this is from your elementary school library. I remember that. And Derp says he loves you. Yeah, he must. So he's just glued to me here. That's okay. I don't mind getting getting exfoliated at 2 a.m, I guess. And Doug said that, oh, yeah, okay, that's right, fluke. And John says Christie is definitely NWO. Yeah, the Krispy Kreme Christie. I don't know about that guy at all. And I wanted to show this because we're talking about this again. And I warned you, you're going to keep seeing these people popping up in the news. Here we go. Here it comes. Anytime, anytime. There we are. And this comes from Bloomberg. Oh, look. Michelle Obama calls for equal pay and puts tennis gender inequality in the spotlight. And there they are. Every week now. Every week now, there they are for the last few months. And that's why I've been showing the stories. There's some fluff piece, usually with Barrick and sometimes with Michelle. Why are they doing it? What are you setting these two up for? That's what I'm waiting to see. Yeah, John says Big Mike. There he is. Equity in tennis. And it's always a joke when they talk about equal pay in sports because women's sports don't make any money. They barely get by. Men's sports, basketball, football, baseball, wrestling, fake wrestling, real wrestling. Although, in wrestling, I'm going to say in like WWE, they get good money because that's all performance. But anything else, any other women's sports, soccer, whatever, there's almost no audience for it. They don't make good money. They don't fill the seats. They don't sell a lot of merchandise. That's where the income comes from. Besides which, a lot of them aren't that good, quite frankly. But here we go. Former U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama advocated for equal pay for female athletes at the U.S. Open, the latest prominent figure to push for progress in women's sports. You let them be better athletes and interesting enough athletes, not progressive athletes who run their mouths all day, but good performers, and maybe you'll fill the seats. Addressing the Arthur Ashe Stadium crowd on Monday night in Flushing Meadows, New York, Obama honored Billie Jean King. Is she still alive? Who implored sponsors and the United States Tennis Association to facilitate equal prize money. The milestone occurred for the first time in the 1973 U.S. Open. In 2023, singles champions will each earn $3 million. Quote, it would take 34 years before all the other majors followed suit. And even today, there are far too many tournaments that still need to give equal pay to women, said Obama. The only way that you could give equal pay is by reducing the amount that the males earn, because that's where all the money is. Delo says, I like the other video you made this morning. Oh, the Prepper Channel? And Urban says it will be Michelle Obama for president with Chelsea Clinton in hot pursuit. Bluch. That's scary. Savage says, cats don't kiss you. They are tasting you. See if you're something worth eating before you rot, that is. Most cats won't start eating alive. Yeah, okay. And John says, women's MMA does okay. And Doug says, lost your gross. Which one is the man? And Prime says it's because Trump is winning support from black people after the entitlements. The media is whispering, remember Obama and vote Democrat. Yeah, that worked out really great for everybody, didn't it? And Preparedness says they cannot keep their nose out of the power ring. Vote with your dollars. That's how to hurt these people. And he goes on to say mass defiance is a winner. It does make a huge difference. It has made a difference with a lot of these companies which have received boycotts. Target, Anheuser-Busch, Kohl's, they're hurting because of that. And that's the only way that you can make a stand anymore is by refusing to buy these products. And if these women's athletics are pissing you off and you watch them, stop watching. Stop watching. And Fluke says, do male models make just as much as female models? Not to my understanding, they don't. When's the last time you heard of a male supermodel? To my understanding, they don't make as much. But I'm just always wondering, why are these people in the news again? What is the agenda? What are you leading them up to that you keep wanting to do fluff pieces on these two all the time, making them sound like they're the best thing since sliced bread? They're not. Obama really messed up a lot of things and walked away from it and left us holding the bag, and it's ridiculous. And Dragon says the organizers and managers in the ATP, WTA, FIFA should tell their assets fund if they want to give female athletes equal pay. Yeah, they can't get equal pay because, like I said, those organizations don't earn as much. They don't earn as much. If there were top performers that people were impressed with, and Derp has some statistics here. He says women make around 20 million for top female models. Male top models make like 1.5 million per year, yet that is never brought up. And Stacy said Obama is part of the agenda. Oh, absolutely. He is dug in like an Alabama tick. Dug in like an Alabama tick. Who knows where that line comes from? Who knows where that line comes from? This story is important. The next one that I got coming up here, I'll wrap up some of the comments. Martina says, cats lick you because you're family. They love you and they think they need to clean you up. Yeah, he thought I was dirty last night, I guess. He sleeps on top of my head anyways. They've only been here for like, what, not even 48 hours now. And Bams says, Predator, you would be correct. That is right. Jesse the Body Ventura said that in Predator. He's dug in like an Alabama tick. This story is important because it demonstrates generational curses. Something I talk about quite often because I really believe in it. And this comes from the New York Post. Girl, 16, stabbed to death during fight over sweet and sour sauce outside of DC McDonald's. Sweet and sour sauce, folks. It's worth your life. It must be pretty damn good. Oh, what's this? Did it go black for a second? Everybody still there? I got a black screen for a few seconds. Here we go. 16-year-old girl stabbed to death outside of Washington, D.C. area McDonald's in an apparent dispute about sweet and sour sauce over the weekend. Naima Ligon of Waldorf, Maryland, was allegedly killed by another 16-year-old girl outside the fast food chain in a popular nightlife section of the city around 2 a.m. Why are two 16-year-olds hanging around a McDonald's at 2 o'clock in the morning? That's my first question. Metropolitan Police said the deadly knife attack. Oh, nobody was shot? Because if they were shot, oh, they would really blow this up. Oh, they wouldn't blow it up because they're black. Excuse me. So, deadly knife attack. Are we going to mention that they're black in the article? I bet you they won't. But the deadly knife attack stemmed from an argument over the nugget dipping sauce between the teens and a third girl. Detective Brendan Jasper testified in court Monday. The verbal dispute turned physical as Ligon and the third girl hit the teenage suspect, who did not initially fight back, outside the restaurant near U Street. Jasper told the court, citing security footage. The 16-year-old instead lunged at Ligon and the third teen as they tried to get into a vehicle. The detective testified the suspect allegedly stabbed Ligon in the chest and abdomen with a 7.5-inch pocket knife, he said. The girl was rushed to the hospital by private means, but could not be saved. Ligon died the day before she was to resume class at Thomas Stone High School following the summer break. Naima Ligon, 16, was stabbed by another 16-year-old girl in a fight over sweet and sour sauce, officials said, courtesy of the Ligon family. The 16-year-old suspect, whose name has not been released due to her age, was arrested Sunday and will also miss class. Oh, you think? As she was ordered held without bail until the next court date, the Washington Post reported. So, stabbed to death over sweet and sour sauce. That's how it works. So I'll catch up a couple of comments and then I'll make some commentary. Derp says that is such a rad little kitty. He's your buddy forever. Yeah, I know. I might have to keep that one. I know I should rehome as many as I can, but it's hard. And Fluke Man said, didn't a court rule in the women's soccer team for equal pay, and now they have to pay them the same amount? No, they came to an agreement by which the males in the male team are forfeiting a portion of their pay to go to the females, if I remember that story correctly. So that was done to neutralize the situation, which is ridiculous. And Broken Gardening is here. And Derp says women's pro soccer team got destroyed by a group of 15-year-old males. I remember that. And women's sports are sad, really, really sad. And the Williams sisters were beaten by a guy who ranked 203rd or 206th in the male league, if I remember that correctly. And John says more black on black violence, unfortunately, because if they were white, they would have said they were white, especially if a gun was involved. Do not step on the keyboard. Come here. As I try to catch these up. And Derp says, unless of course it's beach volleyball. And Prime Mover says, oh my God, kitty fight in the background must be a sweet and sour sauce dispute. What it is Dusty is in the basement and she's under the door there. And I know that Uncle will be under the door watching, and she'll get scared and start swiping from underneath, because that's happened before. And then Fluke Man says, obviously they were or are motherless or fatherless, or they could have both parents and the parents don't care. And this is where I'm going with it, is that you have this whole situation of generational curses of people that are coming into the world from parents who just don't care. We're in a disposable society where anybody and anything is replaceable, unimportant, including human life. What do you think abortion is? Abortion is when a child is, when a child is a liability. A child is interfering with your lifestyle, and so you elect to destroy it, unless, of course, there's some like really serious underlying medical condition. Essentially, you decided that they were going to be a burden and you needed to remove them. They're disposable. So why then would a child that you did have in that type of social mentality have any value? You have all these parents who sit there, and again, from all my personal experiences, oh, I love my kid, I sacrifice my kid, I do everything for my kid, it's all about my kid, blah, blah, blah. It's not true in most cases, unfortunately. They don't care about these kids. These kids are roommates. Most children, if we're being honest, are accidental. They weren't expected at all. But rather than taking that at face value, they look at the child as a burden. It's because of you that I can't do what I want to do in life. You're holding me back. I have to sacrifice for you. A true sacrifice isn't viewed as one. You do something, you love your child, you do something for that child, then whatever you need to do for them, it doesn't matter. And you don't hold it against them. I think actually it was put pretty well by Sidney Poitier in Look Who's Coming to Dinner, when his father was confronting him. His father was upset that his wife was white and got on his case and was like, I sacrificed, I forget the exact number, but, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I've had 38 years in the Postal Service to put you through school and to put you in college and blah, blah. And then he confronted his father, and rightly so. Don't sit there telling me that you did all those things so that I could owe you. Is that why you did it? Good question. But a lot of parents have that attitude. This is a person who wasn't raised, whether they had one parent or two, wasn't raised, allowed to be, they were raised by the system, raised by the public school, allowed to do whatever the hell they want. And this is the end result. Someone who is completely selfish, so selfish, in fact, that sweet and sour sauce is a life and death situation, because that other person's life is meaningless. It's all about me. How dare you? And that's a generational curse. You want to know where it comes from? Look at their parents. That girl's parents are probably no better. All three of them. Again, what are they doing out at 2 o'clock in the morning at a McDonald's at 16 years old or thereabouts? Helter says, more and more I see young people doing something utterly stupid that ultimately results in their lives getting destroyed. Lots of them overreacted to small petty things. Doug says parents are most likely drug addicts. That's possible. And Fluke says sweet and sour cat food. Yeah. And then Dragon says this society is crumbling quickly. This kind of youth-related violence is the norm and is enabled by crappy policies. Yeah, it is enabled. It is allowed. We're in a very selfish, very self-centered society. Everything you see in the media leans that way. All the advertising. You get to have the best phone. You deserve the best phone. You deserve the best shoes. You deserve the best clothes and the best car and the best this and the best that. You can't just live and you can't just be happy. Everything is materialistic, barely raised by parents. And Martina says video games and movies, etc., teach them that life has no value. But even growing up with that, playing video games and all of that other stuff, if you have at least one parent in your life that has a solid connection and can guide you and be a proper mentor, you can navigate that. And these kids can't because they don't have it. They are the children of parents who don't care, who they themselves are the children of parents who didn't care and didn't do right. And Bam says at least USA, they have a lot of bullet resistant clothing for sale. Yeah. Some states try to ban that. They try to ban it. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. This one fell asleep hanging off my arm. Comfortable, guys? And I'll double check and make sure that nobody got hurt. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, though, was under the basement door, because that's happened before. But I'll go ahead and wrap things up again. If you are listening and not watching, this is Coffee Talk on YouTube, at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, and also broadcasting on Prepper University on YouTube. And for everyone else, you can find me on Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta, fistfulofradio.com. And you can find me there Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon. And check out some of their other content. I could use all the help I can get in being found on that channel. And also, thanks again to everybody who has helped out with donations for the many, many cats that we are taking care of. We enjoy doing it. And it means a lot. So we appreciate that. Isn't that right, buddy? Here, I'll give you one last look. There he is. Happy guy, purring away. So we'll do this again tomorrow. And thanks to everybody who made it today. I hope you got something out of the broadcast.